We'll move to our next speaker. And our next speaker is Mr. Soyinka Witness. A round of applause for our next speaker. All the way from Kenya. Remember, it's the Platform Africa. Nigeria, can we show our speaker all the way from Kenya how we do it at the platform? Mr. Soyinka Witness leads IPSOS Strategy 3 across Pan-Africa, where he helps organizations across East and West Africa unlock value through product innovation, strategic transformation, and ESG integration. With over 15 years of experience, Mr. Soyinka has advised multinational corporations, scale-ups, and social enterprises on how to build market-relevant offerings that drive growth and sustainability. With deep expertise in market sizing, sales channels design, and product market fit assessment, Soyinka blends analytical rigor with strategic foresight. He's formally trained in economics, econometrics, and mathematics, pure mathematics. And he has delivered work in over 25 countries across Africa and the Middle East. I'm sure some of us are wondering, a Kenyan man with the name Soyinka. We'll delve into that much later. Ladies and gentlemen, the Platform Africa, please join me as we welcome Mr. Soyinka Witness, Oyombe, all the way from Kenya. A round of applause till he gets to the podium. You're welcome, sir.
Can you hear me? Great. Okay, first, I think I need to change that profile, man. It gives an impression that is very, very up there. Yeah, but yeah, happy to be here. Thank you, team, for inviting me. And this is great. Secondly, I hope I'll do justice to what Ngozi has just done. Yeah, in fact, I was thinking of asking Kenneth if you want to come second. Because, Ndia, you sure? No? Going once? Yeah. All right, cool. So, I'm going to speak about, again, entrepreneurship, but from a context of my experience, which is around advising businesses. And having worked across Africa for quite a while now, I think it's prudent for me to say that what I've come across and what I've realized is that African solutions are better addressed by Africans. Yeah? And that is why the title of my presentation today is that Africa's future won't be imported, it will be built from the inside out, but from an entrepreneurship point of view. Okay. Also trying. Okay, good. Yeah, so let's just get over and done with this. Yeah, because I get this question a lot and all that, right? So, my name is Soyinka Witness. I am Kenyan by birth. I am Nigerian at heart. Yeah. Yeah. And I like saying that I have an African DNA, right? I am, yes, a mathematician by training, but really have segued more into impact-based research, impact-based advisory, and things like that, using data, of course. And today I'm here just as a dreamer like you, like everyone else here, just to try and share ideas on how we can grow as entrepreneurs and what we need to do. So over time, and thanks to all this work that we've been doing, I started creating something. I started working on something called the Entrepreneur's Playbook for Africa. And the whole point around it is that I'm thinking while unlocking internal innovation and embracing diversity and building resilience, which Ngozi spoke about, will define our next story around growth, right? And what I've done is that there are factors around this that I've put together. So the internal factors and the external factors. And to help us just understand the internal and the external factors, the internal, I call it cradle of mankind, cradle of what, all that, right? So to help us, okay. All right. So in the cradle, the C is for culture, right? And what I'm saying here and what we've discovered over time is that entrepreneurs thrive in environments where failure is seen as learning and not seen as a shameful thing, right? Within the R of it, within the cradle, there's resources. Again, over time, and this goes to Ngozi's point around talent and your team, is resources, where our greatest resource, much as I'll speak about more of the resources and everything else, our greatest resource we have as Africans is our people, right? That is the greatest resource we have the youngest population and all that and stuff like that, right? Then alignment to the core mission. If you miss your mission, you're out, right? Once you set it, if you start going against the grain, if you want to try new things and all that, which is fine, but if you miss the mission, you're missing out on a lot. So projects that are disconnected, cool but random, rarely survive in the long term. Then there's diversity, right, which I think is very, very critical in our context. If you look at us, 54 countries, over 2,000 languages, I don't know how many cultures there are in. There's a lot of diversity within the region, and only embracing this is what will help us as entrepreneurs to drive value within the products, to drive value within the services that we offer. There's learning, where, entrepreneurs grow at the speed of their learning and not faster, right? Then finally, within the internal factors, there's evolution. We need to change. We need to adapt. We need to adapt to the evolving times and the evolving markets within us, right? Within our markets, within the region we are looking at, within elements that we are thinking through. Therein now, they are the external factors. Yeah, I thought I really worked on that slide for it to move like that. I thought Gary would clap or something. Yeah. So the external factors. So the external factors, you have your markets. So different markets, African markets are diverse. I've spoken about that. They are fragmented. They demand local relevance. And there's no blanket solution for all these markets. If you go to the south, if you go to the west, if you come to the east, there are different solutions. As an entrepreneur, as someone within an organization, you need to be familiar with this. Ecosystems. Innovation thrives faster with strong external ecosystems, so partners, tech hubs, NGOs, funders, and the like, right? You have the regulations which are in place, where of all these assignments that we've done for different players across the region, there's a point around understanding the regulations in place, understanding the policies, understanding the laws, because this is very fundamental in how you perform as a business, or how internally as a business you also structure yourself, and how you will eventually reach your markets, right? Then growth volatility. There are so many shocks. I remember there was a time when there was this point around the middle income category in Africa. I don't know if we remember that some years ago. And the whole definition around it was that this population is above $2 a day, and as such, there are many middle income categories. But what we didn't factor in was that there's lower middle income, that is the $2 to $5 per day, of which any external shocks therein move them back to the... So many entities ended up setting up in Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and all that. But they ended up closing after 1 year, 1.5 years, because they did not factor that in their business. Then you need to understand your end user. Very different people, very different markets, very different dynamics. For purposes of this discussion, I'm going to focus on the internal factors as we are looking at basically entrepreneurship, but that's not to say that these elements are mutually exclusive. So eventually you have to look at the internal and the external factors for you to thrive as an entrepreneur. Great. For those who are in management consulting, I'm sure you've come across this statement somewhere. And if you remember, the C in the cradle was, culture. And the statement by Peter Drucker here that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? You might have the best strategies, you might have all these things put together over time with different groups of people, but if your culture isn't fit, if your organizational culture isn't aligned to the market and what you're aiming at achieving, you basically are messed up. So what is culture? In this case, and in this context, I'm talking about, these are essentially shared beliefs and behavior and unspoken rules that shape how people make decisions and take risks within organizations. So the shared beliefs, the behaviors and the unspoken rules that shape how we as people take decisions and take risks within businesses. Like I said, you may have the perfect plans, but if your culture does not support it, it resists the change, it punishes risks or discourages learning, it's all up there, right? So within culture, so there are 3 buckets that I'll be looking at within each of these elements that we're talking about. So one, in culture, we are talking about strategy setting the destination, but culture decides if you'll get there, right? We'll come up with plans, you'll come up with all these fancy documents, and we've seen them, right? But the culture that you have as a business is what will determine whether you get there or not. So you can make the best roadmap, but if your culture punishes risk or clings to outdated ways of working, execution dies at the start, right? So as entrepreneurs, and even in our lives, our personal lives, I remember many a times, even growing up, people used to ask us, what culture do you harbor? And not culture in the sense that, where do you come from and all that, but what culture do you harbor? What are you culturing as your ways of working and ways of living? So if that doesn't work, your plans die at the start. Number 2 therein was the element around value, yeah? And culture drives everyday decisions, even when no one is watching. I don't know how many of us can relate to that. So when no one is watching, when you think you're alone, are you doing what you deem is right? Or are you doing whatever you would want to do by yourself? I remember one of the questions that one of my friends used to ask. So he's a marriage counselor in Kenya, and anytime someone would come to him and tell him that I want to marry, so would you be our counselor and all that, the first question he used to ask is, would you marry yourself? Yeah. If the response is no, then don't shift that burden to anyone. Yeah. So culture drives everyday decisions, even when no one is watching. Value is created not just by leaders, by what leaders decide in boardrooms, but by what teams believe, say, and do in the field, right? Then, of course, there's the fact that culture outlasts strategy, which I've spoken about. and can kill it if it's misaligned. Yeah, and essentially what you're saying is that strategies change. We come up with different plans. We come up with ways of survival and all that. But again, if your culture doesn't befit it, if your culture doesn't allow, the culture will outline the strategy and kill it if it's misaligned. Right? Resources. Remember the cradle, so we've done the C, the R. And the resources we're talking about, Africa's greatest innovation will not come from having the most money. It will come from unlocking the resourcefulness, creativity, and resilience of its people, right? And over time, I've seen this. So if you're a leader in your business, if you're a leader, if you're not a leader in your business, what I've seen internally and the best way to grow is by letting other people grow as well, right? I remember I once had a boss who, we had an interesting conversation with her, and it'll come later also in this discussion. And so I told her, look, we need to upskill our resources, we need to train them more, we need to whatever. So they need to go through a learning process. And I remember she asked me, what if we train them and they leave? And I asked her, what if we don't and they stay? Yeah? So your resources are your greatest resource, right? Which we need to tap into. So like I said, the greatest resource in Africa is the people, not the capital. It comes in, yes, the capital plays a function there and we need it, but your resources are your greatest resource, and as an entrepreneur, you need to be cognizant of this. So many African markets, we seem to have some deficiency of financial capital, and it's limited in many of our regions. Those are things that we know. But human ingenuity, resilience, and creativity are abundant in this region. And the only organizations and only entrepreneurs that prioritize unlocking and empowering talent build a lasting value in these organizations. Yeah. Second point is innovation requires more than goodwill. It needs structured investment. Yeah? There's a time we're running something for MSMEs in East Africa. And one of the questions was that, what is your main challenge? What should we do and all that? And they came back and told us, we'll tell you what you shouldn't do. Yeah? Stop taking us into workshops and telling us how to whatever, because all these workshops are just a lot, right? So it needs structured investment as well. If you're talking to MSMEs, if you're in an MSME yourself, yes, it needs a bit of structured investment and structure around where you're putting your resources. So the whole point is that entrepreneurs you can't run on passion alone, right? I know we say, I'm passionate about this, I love this and all that, but you can't run on passion alone, right? So you need dedicated time, seed funding, access to data, which there's quite a lot now, and tools for R&D and experimentation that are non-negotiable. So those are the things that also an entrepreneur you need to take into account when looking at your resourcing. The point number 3 there around resource scarcity should breed creativity and not excuses. I think that is very critical. I stole that point with pride as I was coming to Lagos. So I was seated next to this gentleman, I forget his name, hopefully he's watching. And he said, so we are talking and I'm like, I'm going to be talking about this and whatever. And I asked him, what do you think about this? He said that scarcity, actually he said poverty breeds 2 things. Poverty breeds desperation, hence crime and all that. And poverty also breeds innovation. Yeah? So I'm like, Are you sure that's not the whiskey talking? Because that's very serious, man. So yeah, so my point 3 there was, yeah, resource scarcity should breed creativity and not excuses. And we've seen this across different markets in Africa. Your M-Pesas in Kenya, your mobile money transactions across now many African markets. It's because of that scarcity around banking or the bankable population that led to that. And I think that as entrepreneurs, that is something that we need to, in fact, if anything, this is a very key point for me, that resource scarcity should breed creativity and not excuses. All right, moving on. So the third point is on alignment to your core mission, right? So innovation and value are only as valuable when it serves the mission. What mission do you have? Even as you're growing up, you're growing across your career, as you make your plans and all that. What are you looking at as a long term, right? What are your plans and how do you get there? So innovation and value are only valuable when it serves the mission. Everything else, in my view, is noise, dressed up in strategy and all that, right? So the 3 elements around here are 1, and here I just chose to write the way I speak. So cool, but random ideas waste your time. And yeah, they are cool, but they are very random and they are not aligned to your core mission. They are not aligned to what you're looking at. They waste time, right? Strategy changes, mission endures. That's what I had spoken about. And then alignment creates resilience during tough times. So what we're talking about around cool but random ideas waste time, energy, and also trust is the fact that when you have demand focus and clarity, you tend to succeed when ideas solve real customer problems. You come up with you strengthen the orders and the purpose of what your business stands for or what you stand for as an individual, right? Then strategy changes that I'd spoken about and mission endures, and it's sort of linked to what we've spoken about, the cultural aspect of it. Because the truth of the matter is this: markets will evolve. That's no doubt. Things will change. Markets will evolve. Products will pivot. Tactics shift. But your core mission, what you set out to do, should be the guiding light of what you're looking at, right? So innovation must be flexible in execution, but fixed on purpose. Then alignment creates resilience during tough times. So like I mentioned, when external conditions now get tough, you have your inflation, you have your regulations, you have your shocks, only mission-aligned projects survive internal scrutiny. And that is something that I think is key for entrepreneurs, particularly when you're looking at growing within these tough economic environments that we are looking at. Diversity. So with diversity, I think, this is quite an interesting topic across different cultures across the world. But essentially what we're looking at here, and why I picked that point, is that epidemics love monocultures. And the reason why I actually deliberately chose that image of the cheetah there is that there's something called the zookeeper's crisis, right? And over time, what was happening is that now in the West, so zookeepers believe that they can, instead of coming to Africa and getting animals and whatever, why don't we just breed the ones we have internally and we increase the population? And it worked. It worked for quite a number of animals, except the cheetah. And what was the case with the cheetah was that for every, I think the mortality rate was quite high. It was there 95-90% or something of the sort, right? Now, what they did is that they went back and tried to study what is the issue with this particular animal. And one of the things they tried was skin grafting, right? Now, when you're doing skin grafting, if you get the graft from another person or a relative and all that, your body will reject it, right? Because the genotype is not the same, it will reject it. So the only case where skin grafting works is if it's from your skin or if it's from a twin, right? That's when skin grafting would work. Now, this is the only mammal in the world where you can graft something from, if a cheetah is in, I don't know, Asia and somewhere else, it'll accept the skin. Yeah? It won't even accept a domestic cat's skin, but it'll accept from elsewhere. So the scientific explanation of it goes like, during all those years ago, I don't know, it was 12,000 or what, the Ice Age period. So an expectant cheetah went into a burrow or whatever, came back with its cubs, and everything was wiped out. So what it did is that it forced this animal to breed within itself. I mean, worked for it, fastest animal, whatever, and all that, maintain the genotype and all that, and you can graft the skin. But the challenge with it is that this animal is very susceptible to external shocks. A cheetah can die of a flu. Yeah, it can. In fact, it is said that I forget the name of that particular strain, but the weakest version of the equivalent of COVID virus, first it gets into cats and cheetahs and all that. Cheetahs are the only animals that die of that thing. Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying. Epidemics love monocultures, and that's what I'm talking about. We need to figure out this diversity thing and ensure that you're diverse and bring different thinking within your organizations and within your team and all that. One of the things that I like doing in my team, anytime I'm, say, recruiting and all that, is look for guys who are street smart, look for guys who are book smart. Bring them together, and you have a blend that works. And I remember once, well, I don't know how this will sit, but I remember once a friend of mine was telling me that the challenge with that is that you can face two very strong personalities that have come together and they would fight and all that. And he gave this example of, and it's a common saying in Africa that when two elephants are fighting, it's the grass that gets hurt. And I told him, but that's the case also when they are mating. Yeah? Just because you are aligned on something doesn't mean that that's particularly works. It could lead to serious situations, serious elements that do not support you as an individual, you as a business. You need to encourage that diverse way of thinking. Like I said, monocultures create fragility. Yeah? Diversity creates resilience, and diversity is a market growth strategy, not a moral checkbox, right? One of the challenges that I have nowadays doing this advisory thing, particularly when it comes to sustainability and the element around the social elements of it, a lot of organizations use ESG as a checkbox. True or false? Yeah, they use it as a checkbox. But the way I look at it is sustainability, and in particular diversity, is a market growth plan. It shouldn't be a checkbox. I shouldn't treat someone well just because I want to pass, I don't know what rating and all that, right? So yeah, so diversity, very critical. Moving on, learning and growth. Growth is not something you measure after, it's something you practice daily, right? Again, even in businesses and all that, what you're looking for is not necessarily perfection. You're looking for progress every time. So growth is not something that you measure after. It's something that you practice daily. And three things there that I think are critical and are important for us to know as entrepreneurs is that static organizations become fossils fast. very, very fast. If we don't grow, if we don't adapt, which I'll speak about later, static organizations become fossils. Learning must be beyond workshops. It must be embedded in our behavior. It must be embedded in what we do every day. It needs to be our ethos around what we are doing and how we position ourselves. Then growth comes from those willing to unlearn and relearn, right? Unlearning is not a bad thing. There are certain things that we might have learned. There are certain things that we might have taken as, yeah, this is what works for me. This is what works for the situation based on how the market is. But like I said, markets change. There are shocks that come in. There are many things that will happen out there in your business, in your workplace, in your lives, right? So we need to unlearn that and relearn new things for growth. Then finally, I think it goes without saying that evolution is critical, right? So evolution in this case, and what I'm saying there is you either adapt or you become irrelevant, right? There's a, I don't know, there's an image that that makes rounds and all that. I don't know if you've seen it. Of they don't show the face of the guy, so it's being shared on memes and all that. And this guy has very big trousers and very big shoes, and he's tucked in. They don't show the face, so I'm not feeling bad saying this. So the statement there is, if this is your boss, AI is not taking your job. Yeah? So it's very interesting. But the truth is, right now, what we are seeing is that there's a lot of things like AI coming into place. There's a lot of tech adjustment and development that are coming into place, and we need to utilize this. So evolution, again, in your personal lives, in your works, in your businesses, wherever you are, you need to adapt or become irrelevant. So the three takeaways there are African markets don't wait for anyone, they leap. That is one thing that I've learned. That is one thing that I can bet on. The markets that we live in, they leapfrog. They literally move faster than the growth of other markets that I've seen there. You need to move with the times. Past success is a dangerous discomfort. Yeah, yes, we are happy for you. You've made whatever you did that and all that, but don't get comfortable in that. Move on. Yeah, move on, get on with the times, and evolve with the times. Then evolution is not just about products, it's about mindset. You need also to evolve mentally with how you think, how you relate with people, how you deal with people, and the likes. I'm reminded that my time is up, but just to summarize, one, if anything, just remember CRADLE, where you have culture, resource, alignment, diversity, learning and growth and evolution. I don't know which of these resonated with you more. There's that. Then remember what I had mentioned about the external factors. And that's what I'm saying. But even with the best team in the world, you can be blindsided if you don't understand the world outside your walls. And as such, you need to connect your CRADLE with your merge. The markets, the ecosystem, the regulation, their growth and volatility, and your end user. Thank you very much.